This is the Raising Rebellion podcast, episode number 16.
Welcome to the Raising Rebellion Parenting Podcast, where we will explore how to help kids seek purpose and passion, challenge society's expectations, and avoid a standardized life. Now here's your host, Paul H.K.
Hello, Rebels. Thank you very much for being here. Today, I chat with a college senior who is already out making an impact in the world. His name is Austin Martin. Austin has been a big fan of hip-hop since he was very young, and through that love, in high school, he realized that several of his favorite artists were rapping about and referencing things that he was learning about at the time in school, and as a result, he became more interested in those subjects. That then was the early beginning of the organization he founded called Rhymes with Reason that helps low-income kids and urban youth learn SAT vocabulary words through rap lyrics. Today, as a senior at Brown University, Austin has continued to build and expand Rhymes with Reason for use in many other applications beyond the SAT and to more schools. But what's most impressive about him is his perspective on life and his dedication to serve others. I definitely didn't have his perspective when I was his age, that's for sure. He's an awesome example of who our kids can strive to be. Here's my interview with Austin. All right, today I am talking with the founder and creator of Rhymes with Reason, Austin Martin. Austin, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's I'm looking forward to chatting here. What you're doing some fantastic stuff. So eager to dig in. All right, let's start at the beginning. I always like to start at the beginning and find out a little bit about people's backgrounds. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, growing up, and a little bit about your journey to where you are today?
Sure. I think that my childhood and my experience in school really kind of colors my journey with Rhymes with Reason. And one thing that I always tell people, and has been so instrumental in the creation of Rhymes with Reason, is that I actually was not the greatest student growing up. Up until around the 9th grade, I really struggled to find excitement and interest around school. And I was one of those kids that wasn't great at... I feel like there's a lot of kids that, although, it's hard... For so many kids, it's hard to feel excited about school, but some still are able to focus their mind in the classroom and, still be great students, regardless of the fact that they're not particularly interested in school. But I was not one of those kids at all. So just to take a few steps back, grew up in San Diego, California. Had a great childhood. I've lived in San Diego my entire life up until I went to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. But yeah, when growing up, I was always kind of getting in trouble. Not, very, teachers said that, I was a distraction in class. I knew I was a kid that was very intellectually inquisitive, spent my own time, when I got a computer and things like that, would be on the computer all day reading about sports, reading about hip-hop music, reading about news, art, culture. A very intellectually curious kid, but frankly did not care about what was going on in the classroom. So, like I said, up until the 9th or 10th grade, this intellectual curiosity did not translate at all into classroom success. But after that point, I really started to see a connection. For some reason, something just clicked in my head. I think it was a combination of the fact that, like, I realized that college was kind of, and so just to share another thing, my parents went to college. Mm-hmm. So I feel very fortunate to have that precedent set for me, because that was always like, it was an expectation. Mm-hmm. Just so important. And I always knew that I was going to go to college. Mm-hmm. So around 10th grade, I was like, oh, wow, college is almost here. So there was kind of this fire that was lit under me, but also I started to see connections between the things I was intellectually curious about and school. And especially with hip hop, I really, like, I would be, hear rappers use vocabulary, reference his things in history, reference things in geography, et cetera, mm-hmm. That I was like seeing in my textbooks and stuff like that. So the stuff that I was interested in extracurricularly was starting to kind of bleed over into the curricular learning that I was taking part in. Mm-hmm. So culmination of all those factors kind of started to get focused. And like I said, I'm a very intellectually curious person. So I became very curious about school, kind of with that nudge that came from my extracurricular research and curiosity. So then got pretty good at school, and like my grades just kind of skyrocketed upward, and then ended up at Brown University. And while there, I've always had a deep passion for giving back. Like, I really, really think that our purpose here as human beings is, of course, to leave the world a better place than the one that we inherited. And I've had that instilled in me from a young age, also because of my parents. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to tie like my journey, my intellectual curiosity to giving back. Mm-hmm. And that experience that I just told you about with hip hop, I said, how can I leverage hip hop in the same way as it helped me to help other kids? And the answer was Rhymes with Reason. Mm-hmm. So started doing some more like hardcore investigation into how academically viable, what kind of academic content can I truly find within hip hop? And like I said, I like to research things. So really got into the nitty gritty of like looking up my favorite rappers' lyrics and all that, and tried to find like as many SAT words, blah, 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 as I could find. And I was like, whoa, I think I really have something here with this idea. So that's kind of how it got started. And that's how my journey leads up to it, I guess.
Gotcha. That's pretty amazing. I'm gonna dig into Rhymes with Reason in a little bit more detail in a minute. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit more about your education. You were saying that it was an expectation from your parents, right? And I think that's probably the case for most parents. Most parents want their kids to have a higher education degree, right?
Yes.
I was just having a conversation just the other day with a friend of mine, and I'm a lot of years out of high school and college. I went to college too, and we're just kind of talking and looking back and just sort of shooting it about, well, was college worth it, right? The actual education part, and we kind of disagree on some, agree on some. Is the book learning part, unless you're looking to go into something that requires that type of learning, whether it be like, you're going to be a professor, you're going to, get some sort of secondary degree, like a doctor, lawyer, whatever, you got to have that kind of learning. But there are also a lot of intangibles that come with going to college too, right? I mean, for me, I did a lot of growing as a person, in college. I feel like that's where I did a lot of my growing up, quote unquote.
Oh yeah.
So did you have people kind of helping you along the way? I mean, I guess you had it in your head that you were going to go to college, but how did you decide that, you were going to apply to Brown? And like, did you apply to other places? Did you know what you were going to major in? How did you come to that decision?
Yeah, I definitely applied to other places. So yeah, like I said, my parents, college, like education, honestly, is like the number one focus and priority in my household, period. So like I have a sister as well. Myself and my sister's lives growing up really revolve around education. We did all kind of like summer programs, all the ones that we could, or like summer camps that were like educational. And so I'm just kind of, like coloring the importance of education in my upbringing. Because that, like, I actually applied to like 15 colleges, like a lot of colleges.
Right.
And that just kind of, it echoes the value and the level of import that like choosing the right like continuing my journey of education, in the right place. Like my parents, like that wasn't all me, honestly. They were like, okay, they didn't pick the colleges that I applied to, or said, you're going to, like, we're not going to skim over this whole college thing. You're going to be thorough. You are going to find, like, you're going to take this really serious to find the place for you. And that's just, like I said, that fact more has to do with just how important education was in my upbringing. So yeah, applied to like all the UCs, which are great schools.
Yep.
Like Stanford, and then some of the Ivy League schools, that in addition to Brown. So does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah. The thing I think I was kind of getting to was, you sort of answered it already, was, one of my other guests that I interviewed, his name is Blake Bowles, and he's a big believer in what he calls self-directed learning, and that we don't help our kids help themselves learn. Everything's kind of one way, and everything's sort of given to them, as opposed to presenting thoughts and situations and things for kids to think about and letting them figure stuff out on their own a lot more, right? So, his feeling about college is that the decision to go to college for a lot of high school students, that there's not a lot of thought that actually goes into that. And, people just already assume that they're going because that's kind of what they're told by their parents and their teachers and counselors, whatever. And they just like pick a bunch of schools and apply and see what happens. But for you, it sounded like it was, which is great, is that you did put a lot of thought, and then your parents sat you down and go, okay, look, you're going to do the research. You're going to think about what you want to do, where you want to go. And that's great to hear, is that it was a very thoughtful, conscious choice for you. So very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Nice. Okay. So you're a Brown, you're a senior this year. Is that right?
Yes. Senior.
Okay. Yeah. And you're studying, tell me what you're studying over there.
Okay, so I'm studying business, but at Brown it's called BEO is the name of the major. It's business, entrepreneurship, and organizations.
Okay. And
So like organizational business.
organizational business.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, speaking of entrepreneurship, I have read that in high school, you were a bit of an entrepreneur. You started a clothing company also. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I'm just smiling because I'm wondering where you read that.
I do my research before I interview people. I try
Very
to.
cool.
I try to, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I just, I just feel like I've always been a person that is a creative person. I am happier when I'm creating, when I'm attached to something that's like bigger than myself, and it allows me to tap into a space that is like outside of the box. So the clothing company that I created, it was called San Diego Snapbacks.
I like it.
And I was in like 10th grade, and snapbacks, like snapback caps, were the new old,
Right.
or wait, the old new craze, the old new craze,
Right.
kind of like the starter hat. So me and my friends like really liked them, and I was like, you know what, I want to create my own snapback. So it had like logo and inspired hats, and we actually donated the proceeds, like part of the proceeds, to this youth like rehabilitation center that I did service work with. And yeah, I just always, I really like creativity that directly benefits other people, that like leveraging my own creativity to help others.
Yeah.
So that was like kind of the first stepping stone that led me to what Rhymes with Reason, really. Like the first experience that I had was like, you know, paying to, you know, for like to create the hats, like getting them, shipping them, like just doing all that business stuff. And also having that attached to something larger was like kind of set up what would eventually turn into Rhymes with Reason in a different way.
Yeah. Great learning experience.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about how a 10th grader, because this definitely was not me in 10th grade, how a 10th grader like yourself starts a business. Okay, the business part I can kind of get, but that you and your friends decide to incorporate into your business that, you know, donating a portion of the proceeds to go to that youth rehabilitation center. Where did that come from, do you think? How did that come into your mind as to be part of your business model?
Yeah, like honestly, so I said I was doing community service work with this group already. And I just wanted a way to tie like what I was doing, like, so like I gave hats away to my friends, like sold some, and I was just like, you know what, I should do like a fundraiser sort of thing for this group that I'm working with already. And like I was doing like fundraising activity with them as a part of like working with them. So I was like, hey, this is a cool way to do more and to tie what I'm already doing over here to what I'm doing over here. And that's what I think like entrepreneurship is all about, is taking two different things that are in two separate lanes and merging them. It's like the best sort of innovation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that it wasn't yeah, that's my answer to that question. That was awesome. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So the service part, was that something that where do you think you picked up on the service part? Did that come from school? Did that come from friends? Like, did your parents always, be taking you to do different service-minded activities? Where do you think that came from?
Both. Really school and parents.
Mm-hmm.
High school that I went to, I went to a private high school.
Mm-hmm.
And although it's not like Catholic or Jesuit, it has its whole mission statement and all that revolves around like the community and service. And so basically we had like mandatory community service that we did. But I did independent community service with my parents, with my family. From a young age, I saw my parents giving back and doing things to get, like, my parents are from Detroit, Michigan. And they do a lot of stuff like, tangentially with their community that, they grew up in and things like that. So, and they just taught me from a young age that service was like an obligation. Like this is just like college. It's like, what are you doing on this earth with like the blessing, I guess, to be breathing air if you're not like actively trying to make the world a better place. So it was this, ideology was, imbued in me by my parents, but reinforced by my schooling. Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sounds like you got a great family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about Rhymes with Reason, if we could.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit more about the specifics of Rhymes with Reason, and tell me how you already talked about sort of the early parts of it, but then tell me the story of how you actually came to decide, no, you know what, I'm doing this. This makes sense. Tell me how that came to be.
So when I got to Brown, and this is one of the things, like you were talking earlier about, is college worth it? I was a very wide-eyed freshman, as they say. And I knew that I wanted to do, like I said, I already kind of had a background in around entrepreneurship. And I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial that also kind of like gave back. So I saw these like clubs and there's like entrepreneurship club. There was I actually like came into Brown as a part of this there's like this community service club, and I joined that. Even they had it. It was a part of like Brown's pre-orientation. So even like before you get to Brown, like over the summer, you can sign up. And I signed up for this community service center at Brown. So it's just all you're exposed to all kind of different things. And through the entrepreneurship club, I got an email one day about another individual at Brown who was actually at Brown, who had created a board game that taught math through NBA stats. And I went to his, he was giving a talk at the entrepreneurship club. So I was talking to all these kids who were doing all these ventures, and I got a chance to talk to this guy, and his name is Khalil. Khalil Fuller. And I told him about, like, I had this idea kind of brewing already for something that I wanted to do with hip hop, to like use hip hop to like teach kids, and like use the like I was saying earlier, use the content within hip hop to like directly teach kids vocabulary, all kind of things, as it helped me. So I saw what he did with his company, and I was like, wow, this is actually like the biggest thing about that was like, this is actually possible. Like, you can turn an idea that you have into something tangible. You can, him and others that I met in the entrepreneurship department had literally, like, at such a young age, had taken, you know, ideation to a concrete product that was, you know, people were using. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And like getting back to your original, like what you were talking about a couple questions ago, that's another thing that was about Brown for me, an intangible thing that's meant so much, is like just seeing that things like that were possible made me think that I could do it. And like that was so important. So from there, I was like, okay, how do I take this idea and turn it into something tangible? So again, it was like started doing research on, you know, the number of vocabulary words I could find in popular hip hop music. I started out with like a word bank of 100 SAT words and found around like 70% of the 100 I could find in like popular hip hop lyrics from artists like Drake, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Kanye West, Jay-Z. I was like, so they're using SAT words a lot. So that was kind of the genesis of like, so I had this idea, and then the idea kind of became a hypothesis once I started doing that research. Like, if there are 67 out of 100 words, or 100 SAT words that I could easily, readily find in like well-known hip hop lyrics, like how far can this thing go? How many SAT words are there in the entirety of all hip hop lyrics that ever existed?
Right.
How many, you know, academic references are there? So that's when I really started diving real deep into Rhymes with Reason. Yeah.
Right. So basically the idea is that it teaches SAT vocabulary words within the context of hip-hop music.
Yes. And so it's not only SAT, ACT, Common Core, and we're now expanding a bit into like history and like historical references, and also like teasing like science references and even math. Like the other day, I don't know if you've heard of the rapper Wale. I heard him say the word isosceles in a song. And we're like including that. We're branching out beyond just SAT words, but academically valuable vocabulary and content.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It almost, to me, it feels like if you're exposed to this kind of application, it would, you know, a lot of people can just sort of rattle off their favorite song and, you know, sing along with it or whatever. Sometimes you don't know if you're singing the right words or not. But in this context, it almost causes you to pay kind of close attention to the songs and to listen and really hear what words they're using and in what context, and like to think about, okay, well, what does that mean? Do you see any of that happening with your students?
For sure. I think that it has. I've heard students tell me that like it's given them a deeper appreciation for like lyrical hip hop. Mm-hmm. I think that, like, for example, students have told their teachers, like, okay, here's an example that I really like. Mm-hmm. I don't know if have you heard of Chance the Rapper?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Detroit, like, there's a school that's using in like inner city Detroit. It's called Frederick Douglass Academy. Mm-hmm. And Chance the Rapper is a rapper that has all kind of fans. But like before Rhymes with Reason, he's a very like lyrical, very intellect, like Chance the Rapper. He's 23 years old and he easily could have been in an Ivy League school, like so easy. Like mm-hmm. This guy is extremely sophisticated, mm-hmm. Amazing. The kids that in Frederick Douglass Academy, like when I first went there and introduced the product there, they didn't know who Chance the Rapper was. Mm-hmm. They, it wouldn't traditionally maybe be, and this is like what their teacher said, maybe traditionally wouldn't be somebody that they would gravitate to necessarily. Mm-hmm. But their experience with Rhymes with Reason, they started really listening to what Chance the Rapper was saying. Mm-hmm. Started really listening keenly to his lyrics. And now they will not stop talking about Chance the Rapper in their classroom. They will not stop talking. Like, they keep asking the teacher, like, if they can listen to more Chance the Rapper, like, in class. Because the teacher does, like, he is using Rhymes with Reason all the time and also does stuff beyond Rhymes with Reason with just hip hop, mm-hmm. and has them listen to songs and like break down songs and mm-hmm. stuff like that. So they become these huge fans of Chance the Rapper and like more lyrical rappers. The teacher said his name is Mr. Nellums, like largely after their experience with Rhymes with Reason. So that's really cool. And that's something that really excites me because like we hip hop, and rightfully so, often, gets a bad rap, no pun intended, in our society and culture because of, like on one hand you have a Chance the Rapper, but on the other hand you have rappers who, are talking about violence and
right, material goods and
material things, not really expressing the intellectualism that they actually may have. Mm-hmm. So this program really seeks to shed light on the other side of that story, the more positive side of that story. Mm-hmm. Seeks to highlight the artists that are, offering like substance in their lyrics, and also the artists that maybe aren't, that seemingly don't offer as much substance. It highlights the times when they do, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is important because there are a lot of people that listen to those artists that maybe don't offer as much substance on the surface, right? Mm-hmm. So those people have a microscope on them. So for kids who are listening to those artists, for them to be listening for SAT words from those artists instead of listening for like constantly digesting, some of the other content and stuff that they're talking about, mm-hmm. I think is a positive thing.
For sure.
So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded answer to that question.
Right. No, that's great. So talking about that a little bit, what other kinds of things have you seen from the different schools? Like what kind what kind of feedback are you getting from students and teachers in general, like kind of the best parts and, maybe some of the not so great parts that you feel like, are areas that you could work on to help take Rhymes with Reason to the next level?
Yeah. Let me, for the not so great parts, I'm just like frame that as like challenges.
Right.
So one challenge that we have, like one thing and we've worked through and we're getting better at, we're improving upon.
Right.
Teachers, and we're trying to make Rhymes with Reason in this mold, but teachers like having a balance of, this is maybe not the best term to use, but like being spoon-fed, like lesson plans,
right,
and having prepackaged, like lesson strategy and stuff like that in their classroom. They like that on one hand, and then also, autonomy and creative control on the other hand. So one challenge that we've had and we've gotten a lot better at, is like at the beginning, it was Rhymes with Reason was too like wide open. Like we had all this vocabulary content, like, okay, teacher, do whatever you want with this, right? And for some teachers, although they loved the idea and they loved the program, it was like, okay, what do I do with this? This is it's too much gray area here.
Yeah.
Too broad. But we also didn't want to make it a program that was like, okay, this is rigid, because the beauty of the program is it's outside the box nature, right?
Right.
So finding that sweet spot in between those two things has been the greatest challenge that we've had. So we've created lesson plans, some that, give teachers more autonomy, some that give teachers less. So we're trying to find that happy medium. That's like been one of the largest challenges that we've had,
right,
like on the education side. Of course, on like the business side and everything, just starting up a company and like bootstrapping, like putting up our own funding, stuff like that. That's always a challenge.
Yep.
Best part, I'll give you just an illustration of like the best part and like why, no matter like what the challenges are, I just feel so strongly about this work that I'm going to keep doing it. Like I'm just going to keep like knocking on as many doors as possible to get this thing out there and to as many kids that need it as possible. It was like 2 weeks ago, I was in Rhode Island and we were introducing Rhymes with Reason at a school, and we introed it 30 minutes, huge hit with the kids. And the students were like asking, so we were saying, okay, you know what, your school, like the school is going to get, username, password, credentials, within the next week. We're excited to be, for you guys to be using Rhymes with Reason coming up. So, blah, 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 blah. But the kids, like after our 30-minute presentation to them, were asking to do Rhymes with Reason for homework that day. Like immediately. They're like, can we do this now? Can we do this for homework? Right? Can we take this home right now? And the teachers were just like looking at us like this was crazy, because they, getting kids to like having kids ask to do homework. They said it's like, that's an oxymoron. So, that is like, that really drives me and motivates me. And like, that's why I love this work so much. Having tapped into a solution that resonates with youth like that strongly is just like, that's the best part about this thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic. To have that kind of an immediate impact, I'm sure it's very satisfying to see the teacher's face when you see all the students asking the teacher if they can do that night. That's got to be pretty amazing.
No.
I've heard you talk before about how Rhymes with Reason is based off of a servant leadership model, and I thought that was really fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about servant leadership?
Absolutely. I feel, and I did some research into servant leadership, and read about how Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and many others have employed this ideology of servant leadership in their lives, and has used that to guide their lives. But yeah, basically that the greatest way to lead, the greatest way to positively influence others is through service. The most responsible way, the most effective way, giving back, prioritizing the greater good, is the most responsible, most effective, most noble way of leadership. And through Rhymes with Reason, trying to make education accessible, really culturally accessible to urban youth. Mm-hmm. I hope to be a national influencer in that capacity. Mm-hmm. And I think that I wouldn't even want to be an influencer if the reason why didn't have to do with me prioritizing the greater good. I think our society has too many folks that are leaders or influencers without service at the forefront of their brain, mm-hmm. At the forefront of their action. So mm-hmm. I want to be one of those people that is service is always my North Star on my journey. So that's kind of my answer to that question.
Yeah. I mean, there are, we'll start to wrap it up. I know we're getting close to that mark where we got to go, but there are a few things that stand out to me, as to what I love about what you're doing. One is that, you're making education inside the classroom a heck of a lot more interesting by incorporating interests from outside the classroom. And I think that's huge, because those are true interests that a lot of kids have, and you're kind of marrying the two. Another thing is that, your actions are without a doubt being driven by a larger purpose and a personal mission, which is off the charts amazing. And, the other is that your actions are in service to other people. And it's just very thoughtful to me, super interesting, super engaging, and very inspiring. And it can be a business as well. It doesn't have to necessarily be just nonprofit. It can be for profit, but a for profit can do good things too. So I think that's
absolutely. Yeah, no, I just I want to thank you so much. And it's just awesome. I can feel your passion as well through the research that you did prior to the interview, and just I don't know, it's really awesome that there's folks out there like yourself too that are trying to give voice to people that are trying to positively influence and trying to make a difference, and people like yourself are such an important part of the equation as well. So Yeah, I just really appreciate you. This was like an awesome, like I could talk forever, honestly, about all this. So this was awesome. So I just want to thank you as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you got time for one more question?
Yeah.
Okay. The last question is, it's the same question that I ask everybody. The podcast is about how do we as parents help our kids seek out that passion and that purpose early on, like you have, that you have with Rhymes with Reason. And that's kind of the rebel part of the Raising Rebellion name. What advice can you give to people to help them become successful rebels in life?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number one, it's like you answered part of it, I feel like, in a way, with that question. Mm-hmm. But number one, I think the realization that we only have one life here on Earth is incredibly important. Whatever you believe, but we don't, like, I'm only Austin Martin one time, right? Mm-hmm. And just sitting with that reality is so huge, because it's like, what am I going to do? I have one chance here. What am I going to do with it? And I think just, like I said, sitting with that reality would kick a lot of people into gear as far as doing something big, doing something important, doing something purpose-driven, and going after it hard. So it's like the combination of, like you said in the question, being attached to purpose, understanding like the why, essentially, of what you want to do, but like attacking that very, very hard, because you realize that you have one chance here. And you can like don't sleepwalk through life. Like, I'm of the mind that I want to make a huge difference here in my chance at life. And I think that kids, like, I don't know how to like frame that in a like nicer way, because it's just so real.
Yeah.
Kids need to think about that, need to be reflective, need to be introspective about reality in that respect. And I think when they do, it will, kind of push them into action. So that's my answer.
Really powerful advice. Thank you very much. Okay, where can people find and follow you online if they want to find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rhymes W Reason on Twitter. On Instagram, we do, like, every week or so, we do a cool little vocabulary flashcard that we put out on Instagram.
Nice.
That has audio and all kind of cool stuff. So that's Rhymes with Reason on Instagram. And then rhymeswithreason.org is the website if for like teachers, schools, whatever, to sign up. And then also my email, withreasoneducation@gmail.com is the way to reach out to me personally with anything. So,
all right, fantastic. I'll put all of that information on our website and in the show notes. So if anybody didn't catch that, they can always go to the site and find you through those links. Awesome. Austin Martin is the founder of the super engaging educational platform Rhymes with Reason, making huge impacts and differences in the lives of kids and inside the classroom. Austin, it's been my pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for what you do, for what you put out into the world. Please don't hesitate to let me know if I can help you in any way in the future. I'm absolutely game to help you in any way that I possibly can. So thank you so much. It's been my pleasure talking with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Have a good New Year's.
All right. You too. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you once again to Austin for being on the show today. And if you want to see an example of some of the kinds of things they do, head over to @RhymesWithReason on Instagram and check out their awesome flashcard posts. RaisingRebellion.com is where you can find all of our podcast episodes, show notes, and sign up for our mailing list for all of the latest updates. If you're enjoying the podcast, it would be a huge compliment if you shared it with other Rebel parents that you think might enjoy it too. But most of all, I appreciate you listening, and I hope you're finding some helpful information for your family's journey. Thank you for being here, and until next time, go Rebs.